You're listening to Dharma Review, and welcome back. Okay, this is going to be the last episode in this series on the topics of who's to blame and the courage to act, the Millennial Challenge. All right, I'm glad we're getting back to the main purpose of this podcast, which is the personal journey into spirituality. I said from the beginning that we were going to be looking at certain resources, and last episode we started to look at the Bhagavad Gita. And as we did, we could see that the lack of action is definitely not one of the themes. It is, in fact, quite the opposite. Let me remind you by quoting this section where Krishna speaks to Arjuna. Not by avoiding actions does a man gain freedom from action, and not by renunciation alone can he reach the goal. No one, not even for an instant, can exist without acting. All beings are compelled, however unwilling, by the three strands of nature called gunas. For those of you who have not listened to the previous episode, and for those of you who do not know the Bhagavad Gita, this is Krishna talking to Arjuna. This Gita begins as Arjuna, the prince of the kingdom and a warrior, realizes that a civil war which he is about to engage in causes him to stand against and to fight his own kinsmen, his cousins, and some of his own teachers. He cowers in his chariot and shrinks into a heap, frozen with confusion and lack of will. His charioteer, who reveals himself to be the Lord himself, and the two begin a dialogue in which the finer points of the workings of mankind and the universe are elaborated. I'm sure that many a soldier can tell you that finding yourself about to engage in a battle, especially when forces are about to face off directly, can cause all sorts of questions to arise. Why am I doing this? Why are we here? I don't want to kill anyone. And what will happen if I die? And a host of very deep thoughts may arise along with it. Anyone whose job is to protect and defend can probably verify this very real process. Bhagavad Gita translates like this. A Gita is a song. Bhagavad is Blessed One. So, Song of the Blessed One. I mentioned in the last episode that I am quoting and reading from Stephen Mitchell's The Bhagavad Gita, a new translation, because I find it the most alive and readily absorbable for Westerners today. There are indeed many translations available in English that have been produced in the last century, but it seems like in recent years a select cadre of translations have come on the scene. Mitchell's was published in 2000, and for me captures the exquisite images in clear, concise, modern English while maintaining the beauty of the original. This is not to say that there are not also some amazing text with commentaries that have come out in recent years, and for those who wish to look at it from many angles and dive deep into metaphors about our inner struggles and our modern daily lives, we can take a further look in upcoming episodes. However, what I am hoping you can take away from this episode is just how much, if you are open to hear and see it, that the text alone, with no additional pontificating and philosophizing, can speak directly to the depths of your being. But for now, let me just scratch the surface here, and you can decide for yourselves if there is not profound wisdom being offered for us today in this ancient yet timeless dialogue between a man and the divine. On the finer point of action, Krishna says to Arjuna, and I know I'm repeating this, but I want to take it just a little further here. Not by avoiding actions does a man gain freedom from action, and not by renunciation alone can he reach the goal. No one, not even for an instant, can exist without acting. All beings are compelled, however unwilling, by the three strands of nature called gunas. In all the three worlds, Arjuna, there is nothing I need to do, nothing I must attain, and yet I engage in action. For if I were to refrain from my tireless, continual action, mankind would follow my example and would also not act, Arjuna. If I stopped acting, these worlds would plunge into ruin, chaos would overpower all beings, and mankind would be destroyed. So here you have the Creator giving Arjuna a lesson in the forces of the cosmos, in what keeps worlds, stars, planets, and universes moving through space. In other words, the forces of nature must constantly be acting on one another. Everything is moving and constantly acting. Thrown in here is an aside that one can imagine is a point being made on the socio-political play unfolding on Arjuna's stage of that time. Krishna says, "He who fails to keep turning the wheel, thus set in motion, has damaged the working of the world and wasted his life, Arjuna. Without concern for results, perform the necessary action, surrendering all attachments, and accomplish life's highest good. Only by selfless action did Janaka and other wise kings govern, and thus assure the well-being of the whole world." And then, as if by inference to the example of Janaka and other wise kings, Krishna seems to be inspiring Arjuna to take a stand and to lead by the example of his own actions when he says, "Whatever a great man does, ordinary people will do. Whatever standard he sets, everyone else will follow." But like many a young person confronted with acts that perpetuate violence and war, Arjuna wants to know why there are evil acts. So we have Arjuna asking, "What is it that drives a man to evil action, Krishna? Even against his will, as if some force made him do it?" The blessed Lord then said, "That force is desire. It is anger, arising from the guna called rajas, deadly and all-devouring. That is the enemy here. As fire is obscured by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, as a fetus is wrapped in its membrane, so wisdom is obscured by desire. Wisdom is destroyed, Arjuna, by the constant enemy of the wise, which flaring up as desire blazes with insatiable flames." There are two words we need to examine closer: desire and anger. It is being intimated here that desire is a powerful force and that anger is also a force. Let's call them emotions. And for a moment, let's just look at an example of these forces that we can say most of us have probably witnessed in our own lives. Who hasn't seen a young child throwing a temper tantrum because they wanted something so badly and their parents said no? Or they wanted to do something so badly and their parents said no? So desire for something so strong led to anger, and the combination of the two, unrequited desire and the fire of anger, caused an explosion, a violent outburst, really. Then have you ever seen a parent try and reason with that child to appeal to a more reasoned and wise behavior? Until the child calms down and the fire subsides, the child entertaining a wiser course of action is not possible. That's why when someone is out of control with anger and making a scene, we say that they are acting childlessly. So now, can you visualize an adult having a strong desire that they would do anything to get what they want? So when a business owner wants more and more success and more money to the point that they lose their moral compass, that's what we call greed. Reasoned behavior goes out the window and wisdom is lost. Those of you familiar with the Dharmic concept of gunas, let me just briefly say that simply put, the gunas are seen as characteristics or properties inherent in people and all created things. The Bhagavad Gita discusses the three primary ones and their attributes. Think of them as psychological traits or predilections. Some Dharmic and Vedantic schools believe that all three main traits exist in all of us, and that anyone at any time can exhibit in their character attributes derived from various combinations of the three primary gunas. Okay, so here in this epic story, we have what appears to be, some may say, a modern psychological understanding of people's motivations and a lesson in what defines moral behavior. Imagine, some scholars believe this has to have been written as early as the 5th century BCE. That's approximately 3,000 years ago. How is it that something this ancient can have such relevance for us today? Not sure it does. Well, listen to this then, and while I read this, just look at the characters unfolding on the American and the world political stage all around us at this very moment. In chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is expounding to Arjuna the difference between divine traits and demonic traits. The blessed Lord said, fearlessness, purity of heart, persistence in the yoga, or the union, of knowledge, generosity, self-control, non-violence, gentleness, candor, integrity, disengagement, joy in the study of the scriptures, compassion for all beings, modesty, patience, a tranquil mind, dignity, kindness, courage, a benevolent, loving heart. These are the qualities of men born with divine traits, Arjuna. Hypocrisy, insolence, anger, cruelty, ignorance, conceit. These, Arjuna, are the qualities of men with demonic traits. Krishna then spends much more time expounding on the negative aspects. Why? Could it be he is trying to make sure Arjuna can truly recognize what traits are the real danger? So he will recognize who is really on mankind's side? So he won't be easily fooled when his emotions are toyed with, including by himself. Let's keep going. The divine traits lead to freedom, the demonic to suffering and bondage. But do not be concerned, Arjuna. The traits you have are divine. The demonic and the divine are the two kinds of men in this world. Demonic men do not realize what should and what should not be done. There is no purity of heart, no virtue, no truth inside them. Driven by insatiable lusts, drunk on the arrogance of power, hypocritical, deluded, their actions foul with self-seeking, tormented by a vast anxiety that continues until their death, convinced that the gratification of desire is life's sole aim. Bound by 100 shackles of hope, enslaved by their greed, they squander their time dishonestly piling up mountains of wealth. Today I got this desire, and tomorrow I will get that one. All these riches are mine, and soon I will have even more. Already I have killed these enemies, and soon I will kill the rest. I am the Lord, the enjoyer, successful, happy, and strong, noble, and rich, and famous. Who on earth is my equal? I will worship, give alms, and rejoice. Thus think the ignorant fools, bewildered by endless thinking, entangled in the net of delusion, addicted to desire, they plunge into the foulest of hells, self-centered, stubborn, filled with all the insolence of wealth. They go through the outward forms of worship, but their hearts are elsewhere. So I will leave you now with this from our current lifetime. In an interview with USA Today, James Comey, the recent ex-FBI director, had this to say about his recent book. The good I hope to come out of it is for me to offer a vision to people about what ethical leadership is and what it should look like. I'm trying to offer a contribution to a national conversation that we have to have. What should leadership be? And here's a quote from the recent interview he gave on the show with Stephen Colbert, the Tonight Show with Stephen Colbert. We need a moment of clarity and inflection in this country. We need the people of this country, I hope the great middle, to get off the couch, get out of their busy lives, and say, the values of our leadership matters, and more than policy disputes, and more than the rest of it. We stand for something in this country, and we need to send a signal that we know that, and we treasure it. This has been Dharma Review. I hope you'll join us in the future when we discuss much more about your personal spiritual journey. Thanks for listening.